Hello there, everyone that's possibly watching this video. This will be a kind of just random set of thoughts, random musings, possibly some rants. They might turn into that. As you can see, my camera has censored me. So yeah, apparently I'm too ugly for YouTube. But anyways, first up. Dana White's stiff arm tactics and his view on a lot of fighters. This is particularly going to pertain to Josh Barnett and Dennis Kang. Well, Dennis Kang is apparently not UFC material, according to Dana White, which I think is crazy because, to be quite honest, I think there's only two UFC middleweights that I'd pick to beat Dennis Kang. Those be Anderson Silva and Rich Franklin. I think Kang was probably the third best middleweight in Pride behind Dan Henderson and Paulo Fio. And they also haven't signed Fio. There's another one. I'll get to him in a sec. But this is basically just bullshit because, I mean, we're looking at possibly one of the best middleweights in the world, definitely top 10. And apparently, he's not good enough for the UFC. He is... And this goes for a lot of Pride fighters like Ricardo Arona, who's not coming in, on Antonio Rogerio Nogueira. And other names are escaping me, but, well, Hellboy Hansen, there's another one. But he'd probably be preferable to fight in Japan. So basically, Dana White, what are you smoking and where can I get some? Second point on the agenda, Josh Barnett, apparently... No one gives a damn about Josh Barnett. This is funny because I know I do. I'd like to see Josh Barnett in the UFC. I'd like to see him fight Randy again. And Dana White's robbing this of this because of his own ego. And it's kind of angering me because he can't take that. Josh has said some negative things about the UFC, and a lot of them are true. Like, I mean, them claiming that Randy's unbeatable with Josh Barnett in the room, a man who's beaten him, admittedly on roids. But a man who's beaten him, which is why I don't like Josh Barnett's rant about the titles at my house. He got busted for roids, accept it, move on. Prove to me that you can beat Randy without the roids. But I'd like to see him be given that chance. Third, Fedor Emelianenko. The UFC continues to fail to sign Fedor. And this troubles me because Fedor is the best heavyweight in the world. There's... Anyone who disagrees with me, just, you know, obviously, no offense, but you don't know what you're talking about in terms of MMA. I mean, this is a man who's beaten Antonio Nogueira twice. He's beaten Crow Cop. He's beaten Mark Hunt. I mean, you gotta realize, he's beaten the best there is, with the exceptions of Randy and Josh Barnett, who I personally think he will fight Josh Barnett at some point. It may not be in the UFC because it looks like the UFC probably wouldn't sign Barnett. But I think that fight will happen at some point. If he comes to the UFC, he should fight Randy. So, and if he beats those, there's no way not to call him the greatest heavyweight in the world. No matter, even if he goes in the crapper after that. I mean, he pretty much has proven that he's the best heavyweight. And I don't know if there's really anyone else you can put up there instead of Fedor, and the UFC has not signed him. Now, in the UFC's defense, Fedor has made some fairly out there demands. He wants to fight in combat sambo, which I personally think is reasonable. He wants UFC to come to Russia, which is a bit much. I haven't heard of a timetable for that. That would be the only thing. Like, is he demanding they come eventually? Because that would be fine. I mean, I think the UFC eventually has to look at that possibility. They are planning to head to Germany, and Russia would be a natural progression of their brand. If he's saying, like, now, within the next year or whatever, that is unreasonable. One of his other demands is that he wants the Red Devils signed. Now, of course, the Red Devils is the team Fedor trains with, and it's not a bad team, don't get me wrong, but realistically, there are only 3 other guys that are really able to fight in the UFC, and those would be, of course, Fedor's brother Alex, Roman Zensov, and Marsulev. The others are all either too inactive, such as Ibrahim Magomedov, who has not fought in some time, and I think he's pretty much retired. And the rest are developing, or guys who are just, you know, plainly not ready. They haven't adopted the MMA world very well from wherever they came, which is mainly Sambo and kickboxing. So I'm kind of done ragging on Dana White at this point, but I think I've made my point. I mean, Dana's got to open up. The UFC has to consider what is the best for MMA and making an MMA super organization instead of an MMA saying they're making an MMA super organization, we're signing the best fighters and everything, and not signing the best fighters. I mean, if you're going to do what you're doing, you know, don't bullshit, basically. And the problem is they are, so. Other than that, I want to address the Babalu situation. He's been pretty much fired, basically. He will not fight in the UFC under his current contract. Now he might return in the future if he goes on a roll somewhere else, but to me this is a bit unfair. I mean, I thought personally I was happy with the fine and I would have understood a suspension, but I think it truly is BS that this guy won't fight in the UFC anymore. I mean, I know it was a heinous act. Choking a man out is definitely not something that can be condoned. And he came up with some, the hearing was just terrible because he denied doing it and so on. Said Steve Mazzagatti, when Steve Mazzagatti tapped him, he didn't feel it, all this kind of stuff. But the fact is that BJ Penn did a similar act, not the same thing, not with the same severity, against Jens Paul for holding the rear naked choke a little longer, which is not as dangerous of a choke as an anaconda. Nonetheless, there was no reaction. And that kind of hurts to a double standard where I think the thing is, Babalu, having been arrested for fighting with a bouncer at a nightclub, I hate to think it, but this probably enters into the equation that the UFC saw him just as a bad image and got rid of him. Which is not a bad idea for business, don't get me wrong, but it's a bad idea for you know, best fighters in the sport. And Babalu is one of the best 205ers in the world. He's like probably just outside the top 10 right now. He's in some people's top 10, so I don't know, it's just, it's not how I would have liked to see the situation handled. That pretty much does me for UFC. Well, I guess I'm kind of going on to extension of this Pride. Pride is effectively dead. Dana White has said that he still wants to get some Pride shows going, but I don't see it. There's a number of reasons. I'm not sure how hard Zuffa's really trying to get Pride going. Also, I'm sure there are some issues. I mean, with the connections to the Yakuza and everything that came out, and Troubled Pride made it eventually fold. I think, well, there's probably some residual effect of that they have to deal with, and are kind of having a hard time doing that. Alright, well, that does it for my random musings corner. If anyone has any questions they'd like me to address, I mean, they're welcome to send them. Leave a comment or send a message. You know, any other comments are welcome as long as they're serious. And, you know, I'll take criticism. I won't take just random flaming, and I won't take spam. Aside from that, those will be removed, and anything aside from that is welcome. I'll see you whenever I see you next. You may not see me because I might still have this going, but peace and have a good one.